Right, let's dive straight in. What is your first tip for us today, Tom?
To begin with, I wanted to talk about setting out the big picture, because I feel like it's a really helpful way for students, for learners to get a sense of direction, and also to sort of make cognitive links with the details of the topic. But it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you meet students and you ask them what they're doing, and they don't really know why they're doing it. But it's really great when a teacher says, like, this is what we're going to be studying. And it can almost like give a mini expose of the whole thing. We're going to be looking at this, this and this, and here's the territory we're in. And but to begin with, we're just going to start here. But people know kind of where they are. It's like an orientation. And I could go into more detail, but that is the basic idea, that you kind of set the scene so that students know kind of where the little details fit. And it could be a maths topic or a history topic or a whole range of like genres in music. There's all these classical composers, but we're going to start by hearing about Mozart, you know, but they know kind of Mozart's one of loads of people, and that's explicit from the beginning.
That's lovely, that. Yeah, I've certainly seen this done well in maths. I wonder if you could just illustrate it with an example or two that you've seen it in other subjects, so we can kind of get this visualised.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a classic example would be something like, I don't know, say in English literature, you're hearing about, you know, I don't know, say Jane Austen for the first time. And who's Jane Austen? You know, why are we reading her? Well, you know, you can say, well, look, the 19th century has... novels kind of started more or less in the 19th century, and there was all these books, and you've heard of Charles Dickens, who wrote all these books, and there were the Brontes, and Jane Austen was one of these people. And, you know, that started this and this and this, and there's a certain style, so we're going to start reading this book. And so you've got this feeling, and I've seen that done really well, where people go, okay, that's Jane Austen, I get it, it's a picture, bit of a timeline, and it kind of makes sense. It's a kind of orientation, it puts it in a context. Otherwise it's like, who, why, and students are confused. And it's true with, say, let's say talk about the Vietnam War. I've seen this done really well. Students studied Vietnam, say at GCSE, they've heard of it, they don't know what it is, and they're thinking, when was it? You know, let's just get a big picture. There was World War II, and here we are now. And Vietnam, where is it? You know, Vietnam's over here. And why are we fighting Vietnam? Or wasn't we? It was the Americans. And so you're sort of saying, it's a big scene setter, and the significance and the politics around that in the 60s, 70s. And then you start saying, right, so let's start getting into the detail. But the students have this picture of where we are in space and time, relative importance, and it just helps you start positioning yourself to receive the kind of the details.
It's lovely, that, Tom. I've seen this work two different ways in maths. So one is where teachers put maths in terms with the current topic in terms of some kind of historical context, so a bit of background where it came from, the Greeks or the Egyptians. That works nice. But the other thing that works really well, and I don't know if this kind of translates across to other subjects, is let's say it's year 8 and we're studying expanding brackets or something like that. You can say, right, we're going to do this topic, expanding brackets. Now, the good news is, in year 5, where you first encountered, you know, multiplying terms, in year 6, where you first met algebra, in year 7, when we first expanded a single bracket, all that stuff is going to come into play now when we start doing this. And better still, next year, we're going to be doing triple brackets. And then when you get to A-level, then we're going to be plotting and so on and so forth. So showing them where the maths has come from that they've experienced themselves and show them where it's going to. I always think that's really nice to kind of set the scene of what they're about to study. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. I think it works really well in maths for various other things as well. So, and sometimes it comes the other way. I mean, I feel like there's a great the analogy I would use is sort of looking back down the mountain, that you're in the foothills and you can't quite get where you are, but that's fine. But then when you look back, you can say, oh, wow, now I see how this all makes sense. And I can sometimes looking back and saying, like, I can see how all these things all connect now. That also works in maths. But so in shape and space, you know, you might be looking at, you know, general properties of, you know, at polygons or something, and you know, you just talking about just the range of shapes there are, you know, just saying, you know, rectangles, squares, quadrilaterals, look, actually that's just one of this enormous family. And that if you start looking at it and start saying, you can have 5 sides, 6 sides, 7 sides, 100 sides, and all these incredible shapes have these interesting properties, and look at this and look at that, and we have 2D, 3D. And it's such an interesting world of like the possibilities of shapes. And so what we're going to do, we're going to start off by looking at just a few simple ones to get a feel for it. But look, it's already explicitly as part of a journey ahead into this kind of amazing world of shapes. So it doesn't just feel very kind of really weirdly functional. It just feels like the start of quite an exciting journey.
It's lovely, that. I know this is an impossible question, Tom, but how long do you reckon this should take in lessons? Is this a 10-minute thing, a 2-minute thing? What tends to work best?
Oh, I'd say it's like a 10-minute. It's not a big deal, is it? It's sort of... That's why I think it's such an important thing to do, because it really doesn't take long. It's sort of... I think that scene setting thing is I'd say, a 10-minute thing. And I think I saw a lesson just literally yesterday where there was a slide. They were talking about measurement. It was in functional skills in at FE College. And there was slides about, what distances and, how far is it to a certain place, or what sorts of units would be used to measure the length of the track or the height of the building or the distance to Manchester. And it was just a scene setter. Then they were going to do conversions of units and so on. But it was like getting a feeling of like this whole issue. Yeah, isn't it? Gosh, so the students were going, gosh, yes, I do have to think about this, because it is part of everyday life that we have different measures for distance. And it was a classic scene setter. It was just the big picture of this, like giving purpose to the learning in some kind of either sort of awe-inspiring way or just a kind of connecting to the real world kind of way, so that then they could get on with some practice questions which had some meaning to them.
I love it. Fantastic.